The following presentation is part of the Technology and the Corporation Conference Series, sponsored by MIT's Industrial Liaison Program.
Well, thank you, President Hockfield. Wonderful introduction and a wonderful summary of the great and really important things that I'll be addressing here. And you may find that there's some overlap in things that President Hockfield just said, and that what I will be saying in these remarks, and I take that to be just because they're both right perspectives, sound perspectives, important perspectives. I do want to thank Marty Schmidt for the incredible things that he's done in this field. They make all the difference as we accelerate to really taking this from a set of ideas to reality as fast as we can do that. I want to say thank you also to Donald Rosenfeld at Leaders for Global Operation. It really is an honor to be with all of you this morning. It's always an honor to be at MIT with faculty and students, as well as with people from the business world and government and labor leaders. And I want to underscore what I deeply believe in, that MIT is certainly, by any measure, among the most distinguished science, engineering, and research universities, not just around the U.S., but around the world. So the heritage here and the work that's constantly being done is so vitally important and so excellent. And it is among a handful of premier institutions which are doing what President Hockfield described, and that is committing really substantial leadership to thinking hard about the future of manufacturing, as evidenced by the new Production and the Innovation Economy project, which you discussed yesterday. And I will concede, I will directly acknowledge that all this praise is coming from someone whose personal engagements have been truly heavily at Stanford and Caltech. So not bad places, but MIT is extraordinary. You may have seen a recent edition of The Economist. President Hockfield mentioned it. Got it just the way I was thinking, focused on manufacturing, of the report entitled The Third Industrial Revolution. Quoted President Hockfield, and it highlighted many times, as it should, the work of the MIT research community. And it's true that we have seen a robust national dialogue emerge on what American manufacturing can and should look like in this 21st century. The dialogue's driven in significant part by the progress over the past 2 years, as manufacturing truly has helped to lead us out of a major economic recession. So after a full decade in which we lost way too many manufacturing jobs, in the past 2 years we've added back nearly 500,000 of these jobs. And then, as you know, I think at the same time, the number of job openings in manufacturing has more than doubled. So a lot of job openings. And those who thought that American manufacturing was somehow gone for good have been forced, I think, to re-examine their views. This brings to mind the Mark Twain aphorism, "Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated." I strongly believe that manufacturing, particularly advanced manufacturing based on new technologies, is a matter of truly fundamental importance to our country's economic strength in the 21st century. There's a powerful link between America's ability to make things and America's ability to innovate, compete, and create good jobs. And today there is much more work to do to build on the positive trends we see and to create more jobs right here in the United States. And that's what I want to talk about primarily today. So let me start with a piece of news. The Commerce Department is releasing today a report titled "The Benefits of Manufacturing Jobs." It provides fresh evidence that manufacturing jobs support economic security for America's middle class. And for example, the report shows that manufacturing workers earn pay and benefits about 17% higher than average. 17% higher than average. And it also shows, not surprisingly, a substantial overlap between the manufacturing workforce and those employed in the science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And the report builds on what we have already known. Manufacturing is responsible for 70% of our private sector R&D, 90% of our patents. Just manufacturing, 90% of our patents, and over 60% of our exports. Now, the President himself has understood the importance of manufacturing and manufacturing jobs from day one. It may not be surprising. When he took office, we were at the risk of losing over 1 million automobile industry jobs. The ripple effect on the supply chain and other local businesses would, I think, quite obviously have been devastating. We could have permanently lost part of our manufacturing base, and some have had the view that it could have driven our country from a deep recession into something like a true depression. Instead, due to the President's leadership, the automobile industry has not only survived, but as I think you know, it is thriving. The auto industry as a whole has added more than 200,000 jobs. And the lesson learned, we believe, is that smart, strategic actions to support a manufacturing can really work. And those actions, in turn, can ensure that our economy is indeed, as we say again and again, the economy built to last. So our question today is, what are the next smart strategic steps that we need to take? First and foremost, we need to build on partnerships that already work to enhance competitiveness and innovation. And the Commerce Department is a crucial partner to both universities and to large and small manufacturers. Quick example. A few years ago, MIT collaborated with our National Institutes of Standards and Technology. And in this, MIT measured the mass of certain atoms, and NIST of the Commerce Department measured the energy emitted by those atoms, and the results showed 55 times more accurately than ever before. It's something that I think we all assumed, but 55 times more accurately that E does truly, in fact, equal mc squared. Einstein's theory of relativity, of course, supports technologies like GPS. Clearly, basic research can translate into economic opportunity. In this case, a multi-billion-dollar industry with products and services that we depend on every day. And without it, half of us might not have made it here today, and that might even be true of some of you local Bostonians. Is that possible? So it's clear that we need an all-hands-on-deck approach to manufacturing and the research that supports it. That's why the President has called for an all-of-government, all-of-academia, and all-of-industry approach. He launched the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, an effort, as we touched on, co-chaired by President Hockfield. And Madam President, I look forward to seeing the steering committee's upcoming report on which all of us should focus to improve our national competitiveness. That, I think, is also why the President asked me and Gene Sperling to lead the White House Office of Manufacturing Policy. And what that does is provide coordination. It's really quite extraordinary across all of the federal government manufacturing programs. Before this, there was no such thing. That is, there were a series of siloed manufacturing programs, very big and very important ones, but they weren't tightly collaborated. That's actually taking place, and by the way, taking place in ways at least that I bring in great enthusiasm to right now. In addition, the President understands the essential link between innovation and manufacturing. That's why he's called for Congress to double the basic research budgets at several agencies, including our NIST lab programs, the National Science Foundation, and the Department of Energy Office of Science. That's why his 2013 budget includes $2.2 billion in R&D specifically for advanced manufacturing. It's a 19% increase. And that's why the budget also includes $100 million in new funding for NIST overall, a 14% increase. And the support, we believe, for NIST is particularly crucial because our experts work there in cutting-edge fields. I can't name all of them or won't, but flexible electronics, robotics, biomanufacturing. And each day they work with companies to make yet better chemicals, cars, computers, and more. We need to make sure that they can continue to powerfully assist in finding even more discoveries that support advanced manufacturing and improve our daily lives. So the day-to-day collaboration through places like NIST is crucial. But equally important is where we ensure an overall environment, where we can ensure that an overall environment where U.S. manufacturing can flourish. So, for example, our manufacturers deserve a tax system that truly works for them. And of course, that starts by renewing crucial provisions like the R&D tax credit. The President has repeatedly called on Congress to make the tax credit simpler and then what's yet more important, permanent, not just one time, permanent R&D tax credit. And in addition, as we all heard yesterday, the President wants Congress to give small businesses a 10% tax credit for new hires and extend for them the production tax credit. And overall, more broadly, it is clearly time to reform our corporate tax code. Right now it's broken. The U.S. has one of the highest statutory corporate tax rates in the world at 35%, just way too high. And that hasn't changed significantly since the 1980s. Now the President is called to drop that corporate tax rate to 28%, but with an effective tax rate for manufacturers at 25%. And repairing that broken tax code is something I think that Democrats and Republicans should be able to agree on. Importantly, it will also help us attract more investment to the United States, something we much need. So already foreign and U.S.-based manufacturers are finding more and more reason to point to the United States and say, this is really taking place, it's exciting to all of us, I think. That's where, right here in the U.S., that's where I want my next factory to go. And this is due to our powerful R&D base, our deep supply chains, and of course, our very talented workers. To build on the insourcing trend by U.S. businesses, the President called yesterday in his speech to stop rewarding the companies that take jobs here now and send them overseas, and start rewarding those who bring jobs from overseas back to the U.S. with, and here's what's new, with a 20% tax credit for moving expenses. And to attract more foreign direct investment, we launched what is called Select USA. And Select USA is the first coordinated effort across the government to encourage even more investment in the U.S. And throughout our foreign commercial service officers, that's part of the Commerce Department's ability to reach out, those officers in 25 fast-growing markets are working now more closely with foreign businesses that want to locate facilities and create jobs here in the U.S. And they're giving these investors the information they need and helping them overcome barriers that get in the way. This is a new thing. It's making a difference. I've just been in China. I've seen it. I was recently in India. Similarly, same thing. They're out doing this. In this global economy, we can't leave any jobs on the table. We want American manufacturers to keep jobs here. Like I recently saw at a new 1 million square foot facility that Whirlpool has just put in Tennessee. And then we want to help American manufacturers prove that they can be a strong part of any international manufacturing team. So on that same trip to Tennessee, I saw a Volkswagen plant that is right now hiring nearly 1,000 people additionally. Relatively new plant, doing very well, but going so strong. And by the way, with U.S. workers, hiring nearly 1,000 people additionally this year. But it's not just a matter of building things here. We need to sell things everywhere. The market is all around the world. 2011, we had an all-time record. So last year, we had an all-time record of $2.1 trillion in U.S. exports. And about $1.5 trillion of that was goods. We're going to build on that with the Korea trade agreement that just went into effect. Striking effect, nearly 80% of the costly tariffs on our goods to Korea, those exports from the U.S. to Korea, nearly 80% of those costly tariffs are gone on everything from chemicals to aerospace equipment. And that, of course, is very important because Korea imports about $250 billion worth of goods each year from around the world. And on top of that, I'm pleased to say that the new Colombia trade agreement goes into effect next Tuesday. And here again, more than 80% of our exports to Colombia will become duty-free immediately. We're getting word out to manufacturers about these new market opportunities as part of what we call World Trade Month, which is happening now. And we can't let up. The fact is, many of our trading partners are facing major economic challenges this year. We all know that. This could result in decreased demand for products from companies like ours, countries like ours. So we need to continue to sustain and empower our manufacturers to start and increase exports, grow. Two quick examples. One, we need to help manufacturers make the important person-to-person connections that result in deals actually getting done through efforts, for example, like trade missions. That's what I did in India 2 or 3 weeks ago. And two, we need to ensure that manufacturers have a fair shot at selling made-in-America goods. So our new Interagency Trade Enforcement Center is addressing unfair trade practices to help them do just that. And overall, I'm convinced that when American businesses have a level playing field, they can compete and win. And then while tax reform, investment, and exports are all critically important, let me bring us back to something that hits yet closer to home here at MIT. That is education and training. As a former CEO, I know firsthand that having highly skilled workers to power a company is simply critical. I've heard great things about Leaders for Global Operations. Your mission to train technically oriented leaders in manufacturing and operations is a great example of where we certainly need to focus. And it parallels the President's Community College to Career Fund, which aims to train 2 million workers for good jobs in high-growth industries. I'll never forget my trip to the Community and Technical College in inner-city Minneapolis. Like we talked about this a little in advance of the meeting. There was a service member, a young service member, who came back to this inner-city area after serving 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. Tough experience, tough world to come back to. He went through a training program, and he got a good paying job as a result. Clearly, we need the right people with the right skills to fill the thousands of good jobs that are open right now, especially in advanced manufacturing. And the key to that is STEM education. STEM workers are at the forefront of inventing and producing new technologies. Over the last decade, STEM job openings climbed 3 times as fast as jobs in other sectors. But here's the challenge. In recent years, only about 13% of U.S. college graduates got STEM degrees. That is much lower than other countries like Korea and Germany, for example, that are each at about 25%. The President's new budget requests an overall increase to about $3 billion in support for STEM programs nationwide. And looking forward, I think we need to do 3 things. We need to assume, we need to ensure that women and minorities have stronger paths to STEM degrees. And we need to staple green cards to the STEM degrees of foreign students who have job offers here who can help us drive innovation. And then, as the President has repeatedly said, we absolutely must do everything possible to ensure that student loan interest rates do not double for the 7.5 million students on July 1st, including students here today. That just can't be done to these students. Am I right on that? Do we? Yeah. Well, thank you. It's got to be done. All right, before I close, I'll say something I've said many times before. Washington doesn't have all the answers when it comes to supporting business. Instead, it's critically important that we direct the bulk of our energy and our efforts into manufacturing communities out there, out beyond Washington, across the country. Already, the Commerce Department has a long track record of doing just that. For example, our Manufacturing Extension Partnership, so part of the department, has 1,400 experts across 50 states. The MEPs, as they're called, help small manufacturers get started, find partners and customers, and integrate themselves into supply chains. And notably, for every dollar we invest, the MEP program generates about $30 in sales growth. So it's a modest investment by the federal government that more than pays for itself. Today, we can do even more to invest in vibrant manufacturing communities throughout the nation. So I want to make now 3 quick announcements about how we are doing just that. First, the President has called for a new public-private partnership. It's called the National Network for Manufacturing Innovation. This would create up to 15 institutes around the U.S., each concentrated on particular areas of advanced manufacturing-related research. And these institutes would help close the gap between R&D and product development, finding new ways to reduce the cost and the risk of commercializing new technologies. The institutes would also give small businesses access to expensive cutting-edge equipment, and they would create places where students and workers can learn new skills to get those very good jobs. To make this happen now, we need your help. Our Advanced Manufacturing National Program Office is looking for advice from experts like all of you here. How should these institutes be structured? What fields should we focus on? How do we attract partners to sustain it, along with a $1 billion federal investment that the President has proposed? And what I want to do now is simply thank you in advance for helping answer these questions and many more. These were just posted online in the Federal Register a few days ago, so please turn to them. And then a second announcement will formally come out next week, but I thought I could give you a kind of sneak peek today. Over the past few years at the Commerce Department, we've focused on building on the unique strengths and assets we see in different regions. Many of you have heard of clustering. Clusters happen when a particular part of the country says something like, hey, we're really good at this. Let's do it better than anyone in the world. And next week, we will announce a call for proposals. These are competitive proposals to support customers specifically in advanced manufacturing. This is through a competition called the Jobs and Innovation Accelerator Challenge. Importantly, these funds are not targeted to create new clusters. That's not the government's role. Instead, we want to give a boost to existing clusters that have already formed on their own and which show strong potential to drive innovation and create good jobs. So stay tuned on that. And then my third and final announcement is that over the course of the next several weeks, leaders through the Commerce Department will fan out across the country. So that's all of us, people at the Commerce Department. We're calling it Commerce Comes to Your Town. And at this important moment in our recovery, it's crucial that the Commerce Department's tools are highly visible and accessible to all manufacturers. We must do everything we can to help them grow, compete, and create jobs. We want to equip entrepreneurs and businesses with practical tools from our department's 12 bureaus. So from our new fast-tracked, this brand new patent applications for small businesses, to our advocacy centers work to help businesses compete abroad, and then everything else in between. And we're, quote, coming to town, because if there is anything I've learned in business, it's that there is no substitute for face-to-face interaction when it comes to getting things done. So as I close, it occurs to me that this is the same exact reason that we are all here today at MIT. The time is now for all of us to come together and find new ways to support American manufacturing. We must find and share the best ideas for bolstering American competitiveness innovation. We must ensure that the next generation of advanced manufacturing takes root right here at home. And we must pave the way for tomorrow's manufacturing leaders, including the students here in this room today. If we are successful, I'm confident that U.S. manufacturers will indeed lead us toward a renaissance in American manufacturing in the years ahead. So let's get to work. Thank you very much.